Now, this is going to be slightly strange because I didn't know this map actually existed, and I'm not actually sure where it came from, but it is a variant on Moria, at least in layout, but it's in the desert. I'm not exactly aware if the dwarves had any sort of holds in the desert lands. Maybe the Oricani did, but I really don't know. As I've said before, I'm not exactly clued up on Lord of the Rings lore, but the scenario is kind of strange in and of itself as well. It's like the dwarves have gone crazy and want world domination because it's 4 dwarven armies attacking, I think, 3 defending armies. So, you know, we'll see how this goes, and we'll start off with this dwarven army over here. There are some differences between this and regular Moria, which we'll get onto rather quickly, but we'll start off with Captain Douchebag, playing as the first dwarven army. He's got several Ironfoot crossbowmen and warriors sort of leading the line, and then just in behind them he's got 2 units of three units actually of Ironfoot halberdiers, a catapult, some dwarven noblemen, some Blacklock engineers, and some miners. So obviously the dwarves won't be able to bring all of their best stuff in bulk. They'll have to make some compromises somewhere. Then over here you can see all of the siege towers like outside that have been abandoned. It is actually a very nice looking map, although that might be down to me trying to crank the graphics up a little bit higher than normal. So we have the Fat playing as another one of the dwarven armies, and he has got, if we get in a little closer, some Erebor infantry, some higher tier armor piercing units, and then he's also got several units of Ironfoot, halberdiers, crossbows, and warriors. I'm just wondering if he's got anything else hidden in there. It doesn't look like it. So he's got Erebor infantry and then a series of Ironfoot units. Indeed, his Erebor infantry does house his general. So what are these 2 units up here on the hill anyway? So we have a catapult and a unit of Ironfoot pikemen. I hope these guys can get down. In regular Moria they could, but as I've said, actually no, they can. A route down has been given now. Actually maybe not. I hope they can get down, because otherwise they're going to be trapped. And now we'll go over to this side. This is where you'll see some of the weirdness of this map, because you do clip a little bit, as you can see from the deployment here. The overhead sort of, it's quite weird. I assume this map is a work in progress and someone hasn't quite finished yet, but they wanted to test the layout. So once again we have several units of Ironfoot crossbows and warriors. The Mithril Guard are present in here though, with the hammers of Gundabad. So they're going for a little bit more quality in their approach. It looks like 2 units of hammers of Gundabad actually, so he's got a smaller army, but it is more elite. And considering the fact that he has to follow essentially this dwarven army, so he has more reinforcements, it does make a good deal of sense. And then we have Holy Country Enterprise. In fact, who was playing as that army? Very unprofessional of me to not say that. General WVPM. I have noticed him playing a few more games recently. So over here with Holy Country Enterprise we have some Khazad Orc Hunters. They've been given, at least I think this is a new model, unless this is the upgraded armour version. Regardless, these are the dwarves' only sort of composite bow unit. They're okay, but they're not fantastic. They certainly won't be winning the skirmish fight. But over here we've got some Ironfoot Spearmen, and I believe some Ironfoot Guard here as well. No pikes so far from the dwarves. There's also some Khazad Orc Hunters over there on the other side, and some Ironfoot Warriors here. And then back here we've got some Khazad Warriors, and then some Axemen of Erebor, and at the back his general unit is a Sons of the Fallen unit. So the dwarves on the attack in a more choke pointy match like this can be a scary force to be reckoned with, simply because they can force their way through defences. We'll see if that's the case though, because in particular 2 of the attacking armies that the dwarves are facing down are going to be pretty tricky for them to deal with. But first of all, if I'm just going to get a screenshot. I do need a thumbnail after all. We shall now move on to the defenders, and they're all going to be sort of handled together essentially, because they are. There's no real way for me to get around that, because they're all sort of clustered together. And we have Eriador being played by Stewed Fungus, Lothlorien being played by Master Blaster, and who else? We've got Declan Gardner playing as Rune, and there is actually High Elf, so it is actually a 4v4. Interesting. So Eriador bringing a lot of the Breland militia. Obviously they're not going to do very well against the dwarves at all, but it's just a bit of chaff, as they say, to block the enemy. The Lumbermen will do slightly better with the armor piercing. The Sylvan Axemen are actually a very good unit to bring against the dwarves because of their armor piercing. We've got more Sylvan Axemen, we've got Breland militia. I'll try and go through these a bit more quickly. Sylvan Spearmen, lower tier spears. Again, lower tier spears are not going to really serve too much purpose here. Blackwalds, surprisingly damaging. You know, you'd think from their stats that they're actually not that great, but the hit point survivability that they have, and just the surprising amount of damage they can deal with their sort of stone looking axes is quite surprising. So we've got more lumbermen, more sylvan axemen, more Bree militia, hobbit archers. The Galadrin veterans will do a very good job. Woodland warriors, bandit javelins, and Sindar archers. And back here we've got some Foreshell gatekeepers, Greenway guards, and more gatekeepers. I believe there is a high elven player somewhere as well. So here we've got some Dragon's Wrath guildsmen, some Balchoth Sapphire bladesmen, Cardolan warband, Loke Gamp Rim, Clan crossbowmen, Loke Scion Rim. This is a very elite runic army. How much money did the defenders have? Interesting. Cardolan warband, Loke Gamp Rim, more Cardolan warband. In here we got the Foreshell captains, some clansmen. Well, here's finally some lower tier runic units. And then down here we do have the high elves with Wesker, Eldarenway spearmen, Sindar blade masters, Smiths of Eregion. He appears to have gone for a very small but very elite army. He's got Linden Longspears, Sword Quindy, Linden Longspears, a catapult, and then he's got more Quindy and Linden Longspears. So I take that back. Not a fully elite army. Let's see how this goes. I'm interested to see how this this progresses, because it is more choke pointy over here. The bridge is even smaller, the bridge of Khazad-dûm. But having said that, the other side is considerably wider. I did hear that WK was working on a sort of replacement Moria, but I didn't think this was it. Meanwhile, let's go back over to here, because this is the fight I'm really interested in seeing. So it looks like actually the forces of Lothlorien and Eriador are actually going to charge in. They're targeting the wrong unit, really. Bree militia are a bit of a tar pit. They actually hold up surprisingly well under archer fire, but yeah, this rush forward is actually quite an interesting move, and it should actually work out pretty well, because these dwarves are very outnumbered. The reinforcement army needs to get in here very quickly if they're going to make any sort of inroads. And these Sylvan Axemen charging into the Ironfoot Spears. They should do quite well against the Ironfoot Spears, but they are in formation, the Spearmen, and they are backed up by Ironfoot Guard, which I actually missed. They were in the mix. And as we can see over here, you know, the dwarves are in danger of being overrun here. The central position will likely hold for quite a while. These Ironfoot warriors need to go out to the flanks to check the advance of these Bree militia, and then the Khazad Orc hunters need to... These Khazad Orc hunters are no match for this severe amount of pressure that they're being put under from a mixture of the Woodland warriors, the Blackwolds, and the Breeland militia. Well, let's go and have a look on the other side at what is actually going to occur. Oh my, we're in the Valley of Doom. Right, this is going to be a challenge, because I'm going to fall into the abyss if I'm not careful. So Sword Quindy against Ironfoot warriors. The Ironfoot warriors should win this just by virtue of their mass. They should push the Sword Quindy back. Catapult to catapult action. The Bow Quindy are already taking a fair amount of losses. The unit scaling doesn't look like it's on very high, which I'm actually glad of. Oof, a direct hit on the Ironfoot warriors. Very unfortunate for the defending forces, yeah. Yeah, the dwarves are actually in full retreat over here. Again, I'm not entirely sure that this map is particularly balanced, but it might be a preview of how Moria is going to change, how there's going to be sort of this more open area. I do hope there's still more than one way around, however. Moria was choke pointy enough in the past. You can see that these Ironfoot warriors and these Ironfoot guardsmen are doing a good job at holding the front line, and victory seems certain for them at the front, but unfortunately it's going to be this flanking force of Sylvan Axemen that does them in. They're being backed up by Lumberman as well. And if we look over here, we have the Khazad Orc Hunters, which look really cool when they pull out their dual axes in melee. They're a cool looking unit in general, they're just a bit underwhelming to use. And then we have these Ironfoot warriors, and we can see the Sindar archers. Very, very fast, the Lothlorien archers, almost in a cartoony way. But yes, I believe that the dwarves kind of were underestimating the force that would be arrayed against them, and good on the defenders for taking the front foot and pushing back, but even so, I feel as though the dwarves up there really need to... General VPM's army needs to hurry up and get into some sort of decent position, because otherwise the arrow fire from the defenders is going to do them in very, very quickly, and it's not a particularly long match either. So we shall see how this goes. Meanwhile, if we look over here, the Ironfoot crossbowmen are still firing. The catapult is going to be getting significantly good hits on the dwarven position over here though, but as we can see, this is the strength of the dwarves in a choke point, just forcing their way through. The Sword Quindy won't stand a chance against the Ironfoot warriors in melee. The Linden Longspears as well are probably one of my least favourite units in the game at the moment. They are dreadful as pikemen. I hate them. They don't really seem to serve any sort of purpose. They always die and they always fold very easily. They're more expensive than the more useful Sword Quindy. And as you can see, the terrain is a little bit weird here, obviously a bit of a work in progress. We can see that the Eldarenway Spearmen will do a better job, but if the dwarves continue to push, which it looks like they are, This front over here is looking more and more in favour of the dwarves as the battle goes on, but on the other side, the Eriador Lothlorien rush has yielded some significantly positive results for the defenders, and the Ironfoot Guard are surrounded on all sides by primarily armour-piercing units. The Black Wolds are in here as well. Yeah, there's no real chance that the dwarves are going to get out of this one. And you can see in the background there's more units ready to come in. Rune are just sort of holding themselves back in reserve, which is good, because on the other end they're going to need reinforcements.
They have lost half their men.
And that is half of Enterprise's army gone already. As we can see, these Breland militia, they're thinking twice about going up and attacking the dwarves up here. And it does look like the dwarves are in a... You can see the clipping here on this map. It's certainly not finished, but you can see that the dwarves are sort of in a more defensive position. I suppose they're not going to advance until their allies on the other side are doing a little bit more damage. And indeed, it is a rather interesting sort of situation they find themselves in. Let's go back out here and see that Flav Moore's army, or the Fat, is moving forward. You can see all of these abandoned siege towers. Not sure why so many siege towers were brought to Moria, to be fair. Although this isn't really Moria, I guess, because we're in the desert. The dwarves in their bid for world domination. And while if we look over here, the Eldarenway spearmen are being targeted by the crossbow. So over here, the defenders are having a much tougher time. Wesker's High Elven army. And again, traditionally the High Elves, very, very good at dealing with the dwarves, but actually Wesker's army that he has picked, he has not picked the Noldor Elders, and he has not picked the Eldarenway archers, both the AP archers. So he's actually spent more of his money on his melee infantry, which is a bit of a mistake in my opinion. The Noldor Elders and the Eldarenway archers together are like kryptonite to the dwarves. And as you can see, there's still over there the Ironfoot crossbowmen still firing in. They haven't committed their halberdiers yet, which they may need to. These Ironfoot warriors are starting to lose some steam. As we can see, if we look back here, it is actually the retreat, as it were, of the Lothlorien Eriador attack. So it was really hit and run, because they're now retreating into a defensive position, which puts the dwarves of General WVPM and what is left of Enterprise's army in a bit of a quandary, because what are they going to do? If they advance, the same thing will happen to them. I do think, actually, I'm not entirely sure that the funding for this map was entirely balanced, based on the fact that Rune have been able to afford all of those elite units, but we'll see. Again, the Linden Long Spears have been crushed underfoot. Unsurprising. Terrible, terrible unit. You can see that the catapult fire is still going on. You can see that the High Elves still have 2 of their artillery pieces. Oh no, the Noldor Elders are there. Again though, with the unit scaling on what it's on, there's only 26 of them. The Smiths of Eregion. There are a lot of elite units the dwarves have to beat, and I'm not entirely sure they have the funds for this. We shall see. Yes, the dwarves traditionally are very good at pushing through, but these Ironfoot warriors need more assistance at this point. They need another unit to come over and help them. Indeed, it looks like that Captain Douchebag is going to send forward more Ironfoot warriors. The weird clipping into the ground is going on back there. I would be very interested to know where this map came from, because I don't think it's WK's. He doesn't release sort of half-done maps. I wonder if this is just one that's in the database somewhere, that is, when you select certain things it shows up. As we can see, the Ironfoot warriors are sort of half sunken into the floor. They are coming over now, and it looks like some crossbows that are out of ammunition are also going to make their advance. Good move, because they do need to get through here pretty quickly, otherwise the dwarves on the other side are not going to be able to advance. That is a horrendously good shot though. Mowing down that catapult. No, mowing down that unit of Ironfoot warriors rather, not the catapult. Yeah, these Ironfoot warriors need support. Things are looking pretty grim for the dwarves at this point. Again, these crossbows firing in. Looks like they're going for the catapult. They would be better off going for the Smiths of Eregion and the Noldor Elder nobles at this point. The Noldor Elders in particular, because in melee they're going to be very difficult to break down. The dwarves don't have much of their super high tier infantry on the field today. Oof, that was a bit of friendly fire. Most of it was dwarven units though, actually, based on how quickly the dwarves are starting to push back. Yeah, this is the one fight that's going on at the moment. Keeping an eye on that mini-map for when General WVPM tries to advance on that other position. He needs to set up better than Enterprise did, otherwise he's going to find himself overrun very quickly. yeah, these Ironfoot warriors. They've managed to stabilise a little bit now, but now there are Smiths of Eregion in here, which is very quickly going to tip this fight back into the High Elves' favour. Now the crossbows are targeting the Nolder Elder nobles. Perfect target for them. If they can get the Nolder Elders off the field, then they will have a very real chance of pushing through over here. Because of course, when Flavemore's army arrives, he's going to have a lot more Ironfoot units. And the Ironfoot units as an infantry unit, as I've said before, I believe the Ironfoot warriors are the best mid-tier infantry unit in the game at the moment. Armour piercing, very difficult to kill. Pretty cheap for what they offer as well. As we can see, there's another unit of Ironfoot warriors, although these are all pretty depleted units as it is, without that catapult squashing them. See what these Smiths of Eregion are doing. There are only 35 of them again. I am very glad actually that the unit scaling is on low, because otherwise Moria does tend to be a real lag fest. Yeah, the Smiths are a very good unit to go up against the Dwarves with usually, and as you can see, they are starting to hack down a lot of these Ironfoot units. I would say that Captain Douchebag at this point needs to commit more. He needs to send his halberdiers forward. Because if he starts to run out of steam, that's fine. He's got another whole army behind him. And that is going to be very necessary, I feel. Because on the other end, they're not going to stand much of a chance. Although it does look like the Dwarves are starting to advance a little bit more. General WVPM is sending his crossbows up all alone, which is... I'm not sure. He needs to send his infantry up. If he saw what happened to Enterprise's army when they got swallowed up because of a lack of cover, I'm not so sure. And also, if we look here, with these Breland militia out in loose formation up front, clearly what they're hoping for is for the crossbows to use their ammunition on them. It does look like these Bree militia are going to try and charge. I mean, the Ironfoot crossbow will crush the Bree militia in melee. Bree militia do very, very little damage, as with most militia tier units. They are charging forward. The Ironfoot crossbows are sort of marching backwards, and it's a game of cat and mouse still over here. Meanwhile, if we look over here, Rune have committed a unit of Gamp Rim down here, and actually the Dwarves have been defeated quite soundly. Ironfoot crossbows sort of spraying fire into the now advancing High Elven and Runic forces. The evil Dwarves have come to destroy the last bastion of the other races. Now it's time for a bit of payback from the Dwarven point of view. They do need to get more infantry forwards though. And it does look like they are doing so. They're going to get some Ironfoot halberdiers to check the advance, although it's far too slow here from Captain Douchebag. He should have got more of his infantry down here sooner when he saw that his Ironfoot warriors were losing. As it was, they seemed to hold a bit of an advantage here initially, but now not so much. I mean, they are still going to break through over here. These units are going to die from the crossbow fire, but a little bit less cost effective than it could have been. The Dwarves are sinking in quicksand by the looks of things. You can see the Gamp Rim, very, very effective pike unit as the last replay I uploaded showed, but not when they're outnumbered like this. The Dwarves are very good at breaking pike lines as well, just because of how heavy they are. Now if we look here, these Ironfoot crossbows are now under skirmish fire. They've been sent forward. They're being committed a little bit too. You know, these crossbows are the Dwarven key to victory. Because crossbows can be so deadly to the point of being, I think, a little bit overpowered in the current patch, with how much ammunition they have and how much killing potential they have. Now obviously these Bree militia are going to fall very quickly, but they're pinning this big cluster of dwarves in place, allowing that arrow fire to land and make its marks, and that's just going to be more dwarves slowly dying. And they need these numbers. The Ironfoot pikemen, so there are Ironfoot pikes, which is good. If it devolves into a choke point battle at the end, any pikemen that can be committed would be welcome, although it looks like the pikes are being committed forward far, far too early. If you see pikemen, you always go for them with your archers, although it's difficult to see what the arrows are actually aiming at. Meanwhile, the Sylvan Spearmen, letting off a battle cry, trying to just sort of check the advance of the dwarves in places. Now it looks like, once again, Lothlorien and Eriador are going to move forward, try and swamp the sort of stretched lines of the dwarves. Again, their armies are too scattered. They need a surer place to stand and make an advance than this. And the Sylvan Axemen are now in here as well as the Woodland Warriors, so the armor piercing is now going to be landing, and with the arrow fire, the Ironfoot Warriors once again are losing. Again, there's more Ironfoot Pikes. Ironfoot Pikes would be much better off following through a more concrete advance than this. You shouldn't be afraid to commit more elite forces if you see your line falling, and I feel like the Dwarves don't want to commit their elite forces, and it's going to cost them on this front, cost them dearly. If they don't have an army over here, that means all of the Eriador and Lothlorien forces can turn around. It's going to be a singular choke point battle, and while the Dwarves are good at that, not if they're outnumbered. No chance. And over here you can see the pikemen defeat is a distinct possibility because their formation is being crumpled a bit. They're also being targeted by archers. The hammers of Gundabad are arriving, but perhaps too late already. Once again, you can see the blitzkrieg of Lothlorien and Eriador brutally effective against this very haphazard dwarven advance. Yeah, not the right move at all. You can see these Ironfoot pikemen are on the front line. Victory seems more certain over here because they're up against spears. Again, there's some lumbermen coming in here. But ultimately, across the, you can see the Mithril Guard. So General WVPM, I think, knows how much trouble the Dwarves are actually into. He's sending forward some elites. This flank is certainly the one they're doing best at, so some Hammers of Gundabad and Mithril Guard will significantly turn this battle in the favour of them. But as you can see, Stewed Fungus of Eriador, he sees that on the other flanks, if they flank around with Lumbermen and Cardle and Warband, they can really start to do some damage. I do like the look of the Cardle and Warband, although as a functional unit they're not fantastic. I think they're meant to be an anti-cavalry unit, but again, cavalry in the current patch is too strong for a single infantry unit to really make much of a difference against them, unless they're pikes. Sindar archers, they're out of ammunition. These lumbermen, they did rear-charge these Hammers of Gundabad, but they are exhausted, and they are a low-tier unit. So we'll see how well they can do. They will get some casualties inflicted on this high-tier unit of Hammers, though. Again, it was a very... I do think that maybe looking at these army compositions, the Dwarves... I think the defenders maybe should have had a little less money. But even so, even with a little less money, the tactics that the Dwarves have employed would not have stood them in good stead. The pikemen have now stabilised over here, but it does look like the defenders are sort of focusing in on the middle section over here, trying to squash what Dwarven units they can and where they can. Let's go and have a look over here. Oh, the Dwarves have managed to once again sort of push back, and you can see Captain Douchebag and Flavemore's army is now sort of sending forward Ironfoot warriors. There's the banner carriers of Linden Longspears, and there's also Bree Militia, so Stewed Fungus is sort of committing most of his army early. There's still some Nolder Elders around, despite the fact they've taken some pretty significant damage. Again, targeting Bree Militia with your crossbows is a complete waste of ammunition. They will crumble in the face of your infantry, so don't waste your bolts on them. Again, Flavemore's army is probably in the best position here, but they need to hope that their allies don't get overwhelmed and destroyed. You can see that these, over here the pikes are now doing what they can. And now, these Cardle and Warband, these Spearmen, they're going to do their best, but they're not a fantastic unit, as I said, despite the fact I like their look. But in the middle, the Dwarves have fallen apart. And now these Woodland Warriors can get into the rear of these pikes, or will they? What are they actually going to do? No, it looks like they're going to leave the pikes be for the time being. They're going to actually charge into these Ironfoot Warriors. They're going to try and help the Lumberman. The Dwarves have taken some very severe losses over here, and some important units are starting to die as well. If we look over here, there's only 18 Hammers of Gundabad left. And they're going to be on the receiving end of some pretty severe pressure from these Blackwolds. The Blackwolds will win now against the depleted unit of Hammers. We look over here, the Mithril Guard. Oof. There goes the Lothlorien general. Haldir has fallen, and I think it's because he committed his Sindar archers and his Galadrim veteran warriors to this melee fight. Although just the act of committing them means that the Dwarves are going to struggle considerably on the front, and it looked like they were going to win. You can see these Lumbermen are routing, just sort of getting in the way of the Mithril Guard. These Hammers, though, against Sindar archers and Galadrim veterans, they will probably lose. We look over here, these Lumbermen dying slowly. These Ironfoot warriors are dying to the Woodland warriors. There are only 9 Hammers of Gundabad left. The Blackwolds doing a pretty terrific job so far. As I've said before, I am a bit of a fan of the Blackwolds. Looking at their stats, I didn't think I would be, but they are actually quite good. I believe they will be a Rudauer unit in the next patch, and they fit Rudauer's philosophy very, very well, so that makes a good deal of sense. These Ironfoot pikemen are now being surrounded, but most significantly, we can see the Forestshell gatekeepers from Stewed Fungus firing volleys into the Mithril Guard. The Mithril Guard don't go down easy, but the Forestshell gatekeepers are certainly a unit that can do some significant damage to the dwarves. My. Meanwhile, if you look here, Captain Douchebag's Halberdiers and Flavemore's Ironfoot Warriors are just pushing their way through this unit of Breland Militia. They need to attack now on this front. They need to try and effect some sort of advance into the town centre right now, because over here the coverage is actually kind of limited. You know, there's not really any units over here that you would see as particularly high tier. I mean, the Sindar Blade Masters are good, but if they charge with everything they have and push their way through, they could try and make an advance on the town centre. And even back here, there's not really a great deal of really elite stuff. Only the Forestshell captains, and even they're leaving. So yeah, they need to hurry up and try and make a push for the town centre, because on the other end, things are going exceptionally badly for the dwarves. If we look over here, the Mithril Guard. What are these gatekeepers firing at? Yep, they are firing at the Mithril Guard. That was a brutal shot into the back. Only a couple of them fell. But losing the Mithril Guard over here would probably be game over at this point. And the gatekeepers are really making their presence felt on the pikemen and the Mithril Guard. The Black Waltz are over here. The Black Waltz are starting to die now. Not surprisingly, they're not very well armoured, so even the pikes will kill them pretty quickly. And the Mithril Guard, of course, very, very good. But they will still leave their mark on the Mithril Guard. There's also quite a lot of friendly fire going into them, to be fair. The Runic Swiftblades are being committed as well. I think they smell blood over here, and rightly so. Some more Cardland Warband coming in just to pin the Mithril Guard in place for the Forestshell Gatekeepers to have their way with them.
Lies dead.
There goes General WVPM's General. They still have units in reserve? I think they do. They do. But I don't see what they're going to do, and over here they're losing as well. You can see that these Ironfoot Warriors and Pikemen are finding themselves surrounded by the Lothlorien units. This aggressive defence on this front has really served them very, very well. And it wasn't really a choke point, so I guess that's why the dwarves really failed to do what they usually do, and the Mithril Guard have been scythed down by the Forestshell Gatekeepers. If we look over here, the Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen, another elite unit being committed forward. There's a lot of aggressive play from the defenders. The defenders are losing units as well, but not nearly to the extent that the dwarves are. The Mithril Guard victory still seems certain, despite the fact that there's only 12 of them, but now Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen and a lot of elite Lothlorien units reinforcing those Cardland Warband. Those are the Bandit Javelins firing at the routing pikemen. There's Hobbit Archers that were in melee as well. Hobbit Archers standing victorious over Dwarven Infantry. That is something you do not see every day. You can see this is a real clusterfuck here. The Mithril Guard defeat seems certain, but still, I mean, once again, the second advance of the dwarves over here went very poorly as well. Hard to see how the dwarves come back from this, to be honest. Over here, things are going significantly better for them, but they need to adopt a much more aggressive stance, and they need to hurry up, because otherwise this match is going to get away from them very, very quickly. As you can see, there's just a few lumbermen. There's also the clan crossbowman. They're arcing their shots, so they're not going to get quite the same effect. The dwarves really need to run up this ramp. Slow. Too slow. Opposite philosophies, I guess. The defenders were very fast, brutally so. Let's have a look at the percentages killed. Well, I mean, to be honest, percentages aren't that far apart.
Flees the field. Pursue and run them down.
That, I believe, is General WVPM's army. Yeah, Enterprise, what's left of Enterprise's forces are over there. It wouldn't surprise me if the defenders actually just went and tried to crush his army underfoot. We shall see. I mean, if we look out here, there's still a lot of Flavemore's army to go. There's Erebor Infantry as well, they're a very good unit. There's also the Dwarven Noblemen, if I can sort of position the camera right, and the Blacklock Engineers. There's a lot of good units for the dwarves over here. Finally, it looks like they are going to commit more as well. We go across the bridge. See that the crossbows are sort of leaving their mark, but Again, decisive play is what is lacking at the moment. All of this dwarven infantry just stood here. And they can't afford to just stand here, otherwise the Gamp Room's going to block them. They'll be locked in place for a little longer. What's going on over here? It looks like the defenders are actually going to pull back. Interesting. Again, it looks like, you know, Enterprise is now sort of sending forward what's left of his army. 2 Khazad warriors, 1 Sons of the Fallen, 2 Axemen of Erebor. Again, that's going to be overwhelmed if the defenders want to charge out and take him down. There are actually still Black Wolds, 15 of them. They're very tired. So this is now going to turn into essentially a one-front fight. Enterprise's army may be able to do something. But yeah, the dwarves were too slow, because now if you look, there's Gamp Room just pouring down this ramp. And the Gamp Room will be able to hold. Again, I think pikes do get a bit of a malus when they're fighting downhill. We shall see. I want to see if the Dragon's Wrath crossbowmen are anywhere. That really would be game over for the dwarves. Let's have a look through the armies. Yeah, there's Scion Rim back here. And there's Greenway Guards, they're armor piercing as well. There's Baltroth Sapphire Bladesmen, there's Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen. It's not often you see people pick the Sapphire Bladesmen over the Dragon's Wrath crossbowmen. They're still very good, don't get me wrong, but usually you see both when you see one. Meanwhile, look here, the Gamp Rim are indeed going toe to toe with the Dwarven Halberdiers. The Ironfoot Halberds will win though, especially considering that the Gamp Rim are also under pretty sustained crossbow fire. Taking losses one by one. Oh, this is a grim fight indeed. Again, the clan crossbows, they don't have the best firing arc, and they're going after 1 Ironfoot crossbowman. So you'd be much better off saving your crossbow ammunition, honestly, because it's valuable ammunition. And there's a lot of dwarves still to come, a lot of Ironfoot. The dwarves' greed, will it be satisfied this day? Or will the defenders manage to hold this desert holding? Again, I would be interested to hear if the dwarves did actually have, I think the Iron Hills is the furthest east they were. But then again, the Oricani is something that I'm not really familiar with. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong as well. Now the clan crossbowmen getting some decent hits onto these Ironfoot warriors. Victory still seems certain for them, but it doesn't matter. Let's go back over to here, the wide part of the map, because Enterprise is charging forward. The defenders, I think, have turned around, realising this. Lothlorien, once again, going to be forced to try and aggressively... Well, with Eriador, is going to be forced to try and aggressively take the dwarves on. These Black Wolds and these Hobbit Archers will be cut down now by all of these dwarves. But again, the dwarves will find themselves outnumbered. Although the defenders are a little bit more scattered now. Let's have a look. Black Wolds. Yeah, with Sons of the Fallen here, one of the hyper-tier dwarven units. Not a chance. But now, Foreshell Gatekeepers, are they going to fire point blank? They still have ammunition because they've got their crossbows out. Meanwhile, if we look over here, once again, the attackers are going to find themselves sort of being swamped. The Sylvan Axemen, defeat seems certain, but these Bandit Javelins are going to be firing right into the flank of these Khazad warriors. To use one of J Monster's favourite words, enfilating, as these javelins sort of go through the dwarven line. Ugh. Once again, the dwarves' advance on this front is not going to be pretty for them. They might even win this time. They might have enough to force their way through. There's more bandit javelins on this side. They're going to be throwing into the backs of these axemen. Again, the Galadriel veteran warriors are not very heavily armoured at all, so the axemen of Erebor are going to find themselves outclassed in melee. Oh, what was that? That is Foreshell Gatekeepers. They're not in the best firing position, to be honest with you, but no matter. Meanwhile, these Greenway Guardsmen are going to be fighting these Sons of the Fallen. Greenway Guards are armour piercing with those billhook spears they have, but they're no match for Sons of the Fallen. It's really the crossbow fire that's going to be the thing that does the Sons of the Fallen in. But I have always rather liked the Greenway Guards, despite the fact they've never been like awesome. Meanwhile, the Bandit Javelins I think are now firing into the backs of the Sons of the Fallen. Yes, they are. They are cheap javelins, but they will still get a lot of work done here. As we can see once again, Eriador and Lothlorien just enveloping the Dwarven armies over here. They've played this exactly right. I mean, based on the percentages of kills as well, how it sort of expanded and contracted, I do still think that the Runic army in particular is maybe a little bit too strong. But even so, I think that the Dwarven players on this side, they didn't advance as a unit. They committed forward like individual parts of their army and allowed them to get surrounded and overwhelmed. Now there's more Greenway Guards, that's more armor piercing. There's the Forestshell Captains as well, not armor piercing actually, but still a very, very high tier longsword unit. And now the Bandit Javelins that are out of ammo, gonna just go into melee just to get in the way. Galadriel Veteran Warriors now also, so these Sons of the Fallen, they are a very tough unit to break down, but they find themselves utterly overwhelmed in this sort of situation. And is that it? Bandit Javelins are here? Yeah, that's it. So the Dwarven army on this front, the Axemen of Erebor, the Galadriel Veteran Warriors absolutely sliced through those Axemen of Erebor. Just goes to show you've got to pick the right unit to go up against another. And I know most of the Dwarven stuff is armor piercing, but you can't just send a regular unit without hit points to go toe to toe with the Galadriel Veteran Warriors. They're the best unit in melee and at range that Lothlorien have to offer. Meanwhile, these Forestshell Captains, it is a tragic sight for the dwarves once again. We can see another view from on high of the dwarves fighting as they are surrounded. But again, they are technically the evil ones in the imaginary scenario that I've just made up. It does look like the defenders are taking a very real lead here.
Enemy general lies dead.
Well, there goes Enterprise's general. Again, I'm not sure how balanced this particular battle was. I would have to ask for the funds. I believe Master Blaster sent me this battle replay. But yes, hopefully he'll comment again and sort of leave what the funds were, because I mean the attackers on this front especially have certainly gone about this all wrong. But even so, the way that the defenders are sort of cleaning house does make me wonder a little bit. Meanwhile, if we look down here, there's not been a lot of movement on this front, as is the case more traditionally with Moria in a choke point fight. Although the Gambrim are starting to sort of run out. The crossbows that are out of ammunition have been committed, just as chaff. Again, I believe the idea here would be to finish them off on this front. Over here, there's still... Nope, I think that's pretty much it. They're still swinging, so I imagine there is still a dwarf in here somewhere. Yeah, there he is. Look at this little guy. Surrounded by Greenway Guardsmen and Sylvan Axemen. It's primarily Greenway Guards that are attacking him. That's probably why he's lasting so long. There he goes. Victory. So now I suppose what the idea would be is just to sort of commit all of your forces on the other front and just try and overwhelm the attackers, because the numbers advantage is theirs now, and the quality advantage. I think really the rest of it, despite the fact the balance of power is relatively even, I think that the defenders have this. They have the hill advantage. They have a lot of elite units. They have Forestshell Captains. Really, the most elite units that the dwarves can offer are Erebor Infantry and Dwarven Noblemen, which are very good units, but not really the sort of thing you expect to be match winners. Especially not against the kind of units they're going to be going up against relatively soon. I hope that they actually do manage to sort of fight in this sort of flat area of the map though, because it's really awkward to try and calm a hill fight like this. These crossbows still have ammunition. What are they trying to do? There are these hobbit archers. Sort of menacing. I do think that the defenders would actually be better off letting the attackers sort of come up here as well, because then they can surround them more effectively. Again, the hill will help them, but not as much as surrounding them will. If we look back there, we can have a look at the percentages of kills. Just over the 3/4 mark the dwarves have gone past now. It is the sort of percentages you would expect to see made up in a siege, but I just think that the level of units that the dwarves have left is not going to be enough to really, really cut down the defenders. What are they going to do, I wonder? If we look back here, the runic forces are just sort of hanging around. I'm confused as to why they're doing this. I mean, they're going to need to defend the town centre if it comes down to it. Some more Cardinal Warband, there's more Forestshell Gatekeepers. Ooh. Dwarven Catapult landing some very nice shots on the Clansmen and Clan Crossbowmen. Not the most high profile target, but even so, I think the dwarves will take what they can get at this point. There's still over 10,000 frames to go in this fight, which is somewhat concerning, because most of it will probably be choke pointy. But nonetheless, we shall endure. these crossbows in melee, these Ironfoot warriors. Now, you know, the dwarves really have nothing left to lose. I mean, if they start sort of losing men that are farther forward, they're going to be too outnumbered to really do anything. So they should really just sort of commit. The catapults will hopefully still be... The catapults will be able to hit anything that comes down this hill. You know, and again, the defenders are just sort of slowing them down. Because now it's just clansmen, and obviously the dwarves will rip their way through clansmen like they weren't even there. What was that? Did that hit anything? There's some burnt piles of bodies. The gatekeepers still have ammunition, which is something else the dwarves are going to have to deal with. What are they going to do, I wonder? These dwarves seem to be stuck on the wreckage of a catapult. Surely they don't fear going toe-to-toe with the clansmen. Here we go. The Ironfoot warriors are going to be fighting the lowest of the low when it comes to runic units. Albeit very slowly. Those two catapults could be used to good effect. I suppose those two catapults are also why the defenders are not going for the brute force approach. You look here, again. The attackers are slowly roping it back, but it's only because they're sort of dealing with these sort of really shitty lower tier units. Bandit javelins that are out of ammunition. Again, the dwarves need to commit in bulk at this point. Otherwise the defenders are just going to keep sending single units to sort of do minimal damage on your units, just sort of, again, bleeding you out at the wrists. Yeah, these clansmen are now falling back. See if we can get something to happen here. None of this skirmishing down bullshit. The dwarves need to move forward. Hello. So yeah, we're now down to 10,000 frames. These Ironfoot warriors are getting into the face of these bandit javelins that are out of ammunition. Obviously that's going to be a very, very one-sided fight. But again, more damage inflicted on the dwarves, more bandits. The dwarves are, you know, it's very obvious that the defenders want the dwarves to come up here, so I can understand the dwarven hesitation, but they've got no choice. They are the attackers after all. These clansmen are going to come in, the sword Quindy. Again, these are all lower tier units that the dwarves are facing, so they will sort of start to even out that percentage a little bit more. Unless the defender... This is the first mistake I've seen the defenders really make, to be honest with you. There's some slightly higher tier units coming in now in the shape of the Cardinal Warband. With their sort of cross spears. Look kind of like the Dragon Slayer spear from Dark Souls, only much less ornate. Meanwhile, they're still going for the Clansmen and the Greenway Guards back here, although I think they are actually trying to sort of shoot over, but it's not really worth it. Again, against... If your infantry is so much better than the enemy infantry that they're going to win easily, you don't need to support them with skirmish fire. You're much better off saving your catapult for something like the Foreshell Captains or the Loc Sion Rim in particular. Now the dwarves are really starting to push. This is what I wanted to see. The Ironfoot warriors, the Cardinal Warband are not going to be sufficient to stop this advance. That is a bit of friendly fire, which the dwarves certainly did not need. There's Greenway Guard coming in. Going to reinforce again, a bit more armour piercing on the front lines. Which is exactly what the defenders need down here at the moment. Again, just inflict that little bit more damage on the Ironfoot warriors as they advance. Again, this is pretty much all that the attackers have. The Blacklock engineers are probably the thing that I would say would most concern me if I was defending in this situation, but you don't really need to worry if you've got skirmish power of your own. Especially not when they're as good as the Foreshell Gatekeepers. Over here, the Loc Gamp Rim defeat is a distinct possibility, but they are still going to inflict some decent damage onto these Ironfoot warriors, and also they're going to be reinforced, it looks like, by a depleted unit of Greenway Guardsmen. The Greenway Guard shields have changed since vanilla, I believe. They used to be all sort of square Pavis shields. Now they have the tree. Definitely an underdog unit. Fits Ariador very well. You can see that there's more Gamp Rim being committed. This is much more like it. None of this single unit against single unit nonsense. There's also Sindar Blade Masters getting into the fight to support these Gamp Rim. Now defeat is starting to look more certain for the Ironfoot warriors on the front line. The dwarves are going to struggle unless they get more reinforcements, but how much left do they have? They have some pikemen. That could be pretty key. provided they can protect them from the skirmishers. The Greenway Guards defeat is a distinct possibility. There's a catapult crew over here. Captain Douchebag's catapult crew going in, trying to deal with these lower tier units. The bandits are routing, it seems. They're fighting to the death now because they cannot rout through the Ironfoot Halberdiers. And now if we look, the Lothlorien units are starting to arrive. Very depleted units of Sylvan Axemen, but they've already paid for themselves, more than paid for themselves. And now they're getting into the fight down here to get even more value for money. You can see that trademark runic style, the Gamperin, which was so effective in the Rune versus Dale replay. Now though, Ironfoot pikemen have arrived. A lot of these dwarven units are getting stuck on the catapult carcasses. Now here comes that was a pretty lethal hit. Mostly runic forces, but some dwarven as well. Balchoth Sapphire Bladesmen, exactly the sort of thing you want to kill with the catapult because their javelins are lethal. As I've said, I believe they are the second best javelin unit in the game as it stands, just behind the Demons of the... well, quite a long way behind the Demons of the Desert, but then they are quite ridiculous. In the next patch, I believe that the Rudour Slaughterers will be on the sort of same level as the Demons of the Desert. Only maybe a little bit more javelin focused as opposed to the Demons, which tend to be... you know, they are so strong in melee as well. Not to say the Rudour Slaughterers won't be, of course, but again, it's just those little differences that give factions their flavour. And I can't wait for Rudour. Meanwhile, that is the Ironfoot Halberdiers taking some hits from the Clan Crossbowmen and the Forestshire Gatekeepers. These Balchoth Sapphire Bladesmen, they need to use up their ammunition, and then when they get into melee, they won't be bad either. They are firing, but only individually. The Forestshire Captains are going to go around here, which is very necessary because the dwarves look like they're going to try and break through the flanks. The Forestshire Captains will stop that in its tracks, at least for the time being. They will need support because there isn't enough of them to deal with a full-scale dwarven onslaught. In fact, in places, the line for the defenders is starting to look a little weak. There wasn't enough Lothlorien reinforcements down here. And also over here we can see the Erebor infantry in all their glory. One of those dwarven units which is so hard to stop. They're going to need to commit a unit that's pretty damn good to halt their advance. What do the defenders have left that they can do though? I mean, the Balchoth Sapphire Bladesmen are sort of firing indiscriminately into the dwarven ranks, which will thin them out. The Scion Rim need to be down here, really. I mean, the defenders have kind of made the decision to hold that. More Sylvan Axemen. There's those Lothlorien Sindar Archers and Galadrim veterans. The defenders do have enough reinforcements, I think, to handle this. But they do need to be careful that they don't start losing their front lines so easily. The Sindar Blade Masters are also a very good unit to use against the dwarves, usually because they're low armour. They're not armour piercing themselves though, which means they won't have quite the same level of lethality. And there also aren't very many of them, but they are doing a decent job. They're also taking a bit of friendly fire. If we look over here, this Gamperin is still alive. Again, holding firm in the face of the dwarves, the men from the east. Rune are a bit of a favourite at the moment among the community, it seems, and for good reason. They are very, very good. Armour piercing in general seems to be... if you're not facing the elves, armour piercing is really the key to success most of the time. Like, I love Arnor, but I'm willing to admit that they do lack armour piercing, and it's why they aren't truly top tier. The Knights of Illuminus, being able to afford 2 of them is nice, but it isn't enough to give them a true cab advantage. If you look at Dol Amroth on the other hand, they do have that. And they also have the armour piercing to back that up on foot. Meanwhile, we have the Ironfoot Halberdiers. So coming in once again, looks like they're going to sort of engage the local Gamperin. Over here, the Forestshire Captain's victory seems certain. They're being backed up by a depleted unit of Sylvan Axemen and Spearmen. But they are able to overwhelm these Ironfoot Halberdmen. Very well done. Forestshire Captains are a cool looking unit. You don't get to see them a lot because you don't see Eriador a lot, but hopefully next patch when they receive their new name as Cardalan, it won't be just Kuro that appreciates them. The Ironfoot Halberds again. It looks like the defenders are sort of forcing them back. This is where the defenders should smell blood and just sort of commit and squash them. They have the skirmish advantage, they have the manpower advantage, they have the positional advantage. Just finish them off. The Erebor infantry are starting to fall. They just don't have enough. Now the gatekeepers, they're out of ammunition. And now pull out their bills and get into melee, and they're pretty damn good in melee as well at holding the line.
The enemy are badly bloodied. They have lost half their men. If we continue like this, we will smash the enemy.
Indeed you will. The halberds and the Ironfoot warriors over here, not enough to deal with the combination of the Sylvan Axemen and the Loke Gambrim. The upgraded Sylvan Axemen at that. I wonder if this is a scenario that someone made.
Have taken control of the city.
Again, I'm not sure. I'll have to ask that. I know that people do make their own scenarios from time to time, but you know, I'm not aware of all of them. The Gambrim forming that front line. There's another unit of Erebor infantry, so Flavemore actually had 2 in that cluster. Maybe not all is lost yet, because his first unit of Erebor infantry is really starting to peter out. But a second unit might be enough to finally crack this Loke Gambrim, and then the defenders will have to commit another unit down here, although on this flank things are looking very grim for them. The Forest Shell captains once again cleaning house. And based on the amount of time left, I would say that the defenders have this somewhat in the bag. Where are the black blocks? There's some dwarven noblemen just around this corner. Have the black blocks used up their ammunition, I wonder? I can't see them, so I would assume not. Oh, I see what's happened to them. They've been skirmished into oblivion. Yeah, that's the end for them then. Alas, the dwarven bid for supremacy in Middle-earth
control of the city
has been halted. Their greed knows no bounds. I do like the Erebor infantry though. As I said before, I believe Cuz of Doom are going to be one of like a new dwarven faction, as it were. And then I assume the other dwarven faction, like the current dwarven faction, will be renamed to Erebor, maybe? At least I assume that's how it will be. It'd be interesting to see the differing philosophies, because Cuz of Doom have got a lot of high tier, sort of high mass infantry units as well. A lot of players are starting to admit defeat. I assume that's the 2 dwarven armies that have been long dead. Over there you can see the Galadrim veterans getting ready to reinforce the Forest Shell captains in addition to the Noldor elders. Yeah, this at this point is bullying. And yeah, the defenders smell blood now. Finally the Scion Rim and the Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen and the Runic Swiftblades coming in for an overwhelming finish. We have a look on this front, yeah, the Noldor elders. As an all-round unit, probably the strongest single unit in the game at the moment. Obviously, that's difficult to quantify, but even so, I'm a big fan of the Galadrim veterans as well. Even if their golden armour does make them a little vulgar, perhaps, they are still very, very effective. We can see that the Dragon's Wrath Guildsmen, the Loke Gambrim, more Scion Rim. The Golden Legion will defeat the Iron Legion, it seems. Well, the Golden Legion and friends. The Golden Boys and friends. Whatever you prefer. The Catapult Crew is also coming in. I mean, these Dwarven Noblemen at this point just charge in. Why not? The Dwarves, again, how balanced this scenario actually was is debatable, but I think that the Dwarven players on the other side, in the wider section of the map, they handled that situation not in the correct manner, I would say. And the defenders were very alert. I mean, it's not... A lot of the time you will see defending armies sort of be more conservative because they feel like, well, we should sit back because that's what we're doing, we're defending. But oftentimes being aggressive on the defence is one of the things that will really propel your army forward. And in that situation it worked 3 times. 3 times the Lothlorien Eriador forces, backed up by some of the Brune army, managed to crush the Dwarven advance.
General lies dead.
There goes the final Dwarven General at the hands of Scion Rim. The Erebor infantry are good, but they're not this good. Only 38 left. They will take quite a long time dying though. In fact, we're better off doing this. This is all the fight is now. The Scion Rim just pushing forward. They're a pretty high mass spear unit. Been showing a lot of room lately, and then again they're popular, so that's simply how it is. The Gatekeepers. Here are the Dwarven Noblemen. Finally sort of charging forward. It isn't going to be enough.
Continue like this, we will smash the enemy.
Greed did not win the day. A newfound unity between East and West did. Once again, Rune find themselves on the winning team as well. At least we're not seeing the Woodland Realms. No one likes fighting the Woodland Realms.
That'll teach him to ride to war on a pony. This is a clear victory.
Ride to war on a pony. This is a clear victory. Enterprise's army, he was on the receiving end of a horrible beating on the other end of the fight. Well, the other end of the battle. Lothlorien rightly getting the most amount of kills. I think they and Eriador were really responsible for the vast majority of the squashing that went on the other side of the map. Eriador actually deployed the most men as well. A lot of chaff in his army, as it were. A lot of Bree militia. A lot of tar pits. And it worked. It worked out very well. Again, I don't know how balanced this was per se. I think that maybe the defending army should have had a little bit less in terms of elite units. But even so, I think even then, the defenders probably would have rode this out. They've got a lot of units left alive. So if they were to lose, say, one elite unit each, I don't think that would have affected the outcome, to be honest with you. If we look here, we can see all of the... Well, this is just... Yeah, so Lothlorien Master Blaster sent me this. And 280 kills on the Sindar Archers. Brutal. Galadrim Veteran Warriors, they have significantly less ammunition, but they are better in melee. And again, all of the Sylvan Axemen did very well, because this is exactly the kind of fight they like. The Woodland Warriors slightly less so, but then they are less durable. And then the Sylvan Spearmen, of course, not going to get many kills on the Dwarves anyway. So yeah, that was Desert Moria, or some sort of dwarven hold in the desert. Kind of a weird one. You know, I don't know if this is a scenario someone made. I'd be glad to hear what actually went on. But yes, a 4v4. So 8 players. Lower scale, of course, but again, helps with the lag. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you'll join me for whatever is next.